Hey, I'm Matt, and on this channel, we talk about tech, games, and the policy and culture around those things. And today, I have a hell of a games culture topic for you. Today, we're going to talk about the new Harry Potter RPG, Hogwarts Legacy. I talked to two different trans folks about this game and its character creator, which it was recently revealed would attempt to be trans inclusive. But is it actually? And even if it is that enough to excuse J.K. Rowling's transphobia? Let's get into it. So to give you a timeline of events, Hogwarts Legacy was originally announced in September 2020 at a PS5 event. The Twitter discourse was immediately nuts. If I didn't delete my tweets regularly, you'd be able to find a long thread with a friend of mine talking about the merits of buying this game or not. If this game, an open-world action RPG set in the Wizarding World where you get to play a student at Hogwarts, had come out 10 years ago, I would have bought the very first copy. You think I'm joking, but I saw Deathly Hallows Part 2 6 hours before it came out at a Harry Potter fan convention. I would have made it happen. WB Games immediately said that Rowling was not involved with the game, despite her making royalties off of anything pertaining to her intellectual property. Then, many months later, on February 19th, 2021, it was discovered that a producer on the game, Troy Leavitt, was a Gamergate apologist and supporter, and that he has a YouTube channel where he criticizes Anita Sarkeesian and defends John Lasseter. This info was posted on Twitter and on the very popular gaming forum Resetera. In response to the news, Resetera banned all promotional or hype threads pertaining to the game Hogwarts Legacy. Then last week, games journalist Jason Schreier reported that there would be transgender character options in Hogwarts Legacy. These would include body type, voice, and gender, all of which could be chosen independent of one another. And then a few days later, Troy Leavitt announced on Twitter that he was leaving WB Games and that he would soon be releasing a video about it all on his YouTube channel, something that people now know exists. In 2021, I have so many reservations about this game. But before I get too much deeper into the discourse about trans folks, I thought it was important to hear from trans folks about how they feel about J.K. Rowling, how they feel about this game, and how they feel about the franchise overall. So that's what I did. But two things before we jump to that. One, I am not really here to debate Rowling's transphobia. There are two really great videos right here that do that already, from ContraPoints and Lindsay Ellis. Y'all, I'm telling you, this is 2.5 hours of the best YouTube content that you will find. It's incredible. Go there after you're done here and watch those, and I'll tell you right now, start with ContraPoints first, because Lindsay talks about hers. 2. A lot of people want to know if J.K. Rowling makes money off of Hogwarts Legacy. And unfortunately, the answer is yes. She makes money on anything that involves her intellectual property. So as much as WB Games says that she's not involved, she is profiting off of this game. Okay, let's do this. Oh, hi.
Oh, hello.
You look cute.
Thank you.
The first question is very broad, and what I'll say is let's not take the whole time on this question because one, I already know it all, and two, it could go for a long time. But tell me about your Harry Potter fandom.
Oh boy. I was one of those people that had this as my defining personality characteristic. It's now also one of the most embarrassing things. I was really into Harry Potter as a young person. As a teen, I have a covert Harry Potter tattoo that is a radish. I'm glad that that's what I chose. All these years later, because it doesn't immediately read Harry Potter. I do have I have a Harry Potter tattoo. I love Harry Potter. I was deeply immersed in the fan community in my own ways. I met you because of Wizard Rock, right? Music about Harry Potter, bands doing cosplay and making music as part of that cosplay, I think is maybe the best way to describe Wizard Rock now that I have those words for it. I don't really know how to describe it otherwise for folks who are listening who maybe don't know about it.
Yeah. I'm 28 years old. I was born in 93. I have an older brother who was born in 90. And he started reading the books in elementary school. So then by way, I at some point began to read them, and we had audio, you remember cassette tapes with one of the books on cassette. And then the movies happened, and that's kind of when I became a big Harry Potter fan, was the movies. Of course, I've read the books because they're not difficult to get through. But yeah, I was probably third grade when the first movie came out, and it just was my whole life. The last one came out when I was a senior in high school. So it was just my whole adolescence was kind of paralleled by this mass storyline that we all got to watch. It just was this really like magical experience to grow up with and to know other people who loved Harry Potter and loved all of the camp and the humor and the costumes and the music. It's so in its own lane. And I think growing up, I always had friends who liked other brands of like, you know, cartoons and things. But like so many like wizarding shows or witchcraft always would take off, like rip off Harry Potter ever since it like showed up, you know? So it's just obviously like one of those like monumental pieces of pop culture that a lot of us connect on. And I'm no way like separate from that. I was very much inundated by the movies. Emma Watson is still someone I follow on Instagram and live for, you know, it's just part of my culture. It's part of who I am as like a white American girl is Harry Potter. You know, it just becomes part of your life when you're very creative and you love that, the mystique and the color and the passion and the constant evil versus good, you know, it's so magnificent.
I'm curious, like, how are you engaged or are you with that like right now in 2021?
No. So the moment J.K. Rowling decided to slip her little lips about trans people, I was like, done. I don't fuck with that shit. Don't. Then this is how much of a fan I am. Just briefly, I have a wand sitting right here and it still sits on my table every day. And it's the only semblance of fandom I will hold on to because I got this Potter world with fucking Universal. But it's amazing. It's just so delicious. And that dumb fucking, I probably shouldn't swear on here. I'm sorry. That silly little ignorant lady decided to just, and then I had to just stop and go, all right, I'm done. This is so sad. This is so, no, I'm not involved at all because I refuse. It's like so shocking. It's so shocking because you're like, how could you write these books about fighting for your own right to be free and to love yourself and to love your community the way it is? And then just go, except for trans people in like real life. It's so weird. It doesn't make an ounce of sense to me. It makes no sense to me. None. What, out of all the things in the world, all of the bridges to die on, trans rights?
I think it was really painful for me in like 2016, like when the first like accidental moments of, you know, J.K. Rowling's transphobia and trans exclusionary radical feminism, although I struggle to even call J.K. Rowling a TERF because I don't think that she's a radical feminist, right? Like, so more specifically, like her transphobia starts to show up, like the accidental liking of tweets or the accidental saying of things, the opportunities to be called in, like those start happening when I was 26 and not yet out as trans. And it was really painful for me because I was very out as queer and very engaged in the queer community and feeling like a lot of tension and angst. Like, can I still like this thing when I have all of these people that I love and I care about in my life who are trans telling me that like it's a bad thing? And now in 2021, being out as trans, having been out as trans for 3-4 years now, I don't know where I land on like re-engaging with the text ever again in the future. I think it almost remains this like artifact of my past of like, this is a thing that I really loved and carries a lot of meaning for me personally, but you're not gonna hear me talk about it in a public like you're not gonna hear me talk about it in any way other than critically, outside of a very specific set of people. In the same way that, you know, you might harbor those soft, positive memories of someone who was like really abusive or really harmful to you. That doesn't mean that they didn't abuse you or they didn't harm you just because you remember those positive things and the things that came out of it. So like, I'm gonna hold on to the memories, but like, you're not gonna see me spending my dollars on anything Harry Potter related ever again. I mean, that's me in the first movie. I think of like the first movie is still something that's tied to so many positive, warm memories for me that I'm able to watch it in a way that's separate from all of the other things. And I also do not have that expectation for anyone else, and do not feel like compelled to tell people that when I am hearing conversation that is critiquing a piece of media that has that memory, because like that critique is valid and I agree with it.
But I do take Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling like I do take fast fashion only secondhand. I will not give that company or any of the affiliates money, but I will secondhand stuff the way I do. Like I won't shop at like Forever 21 or H&M or any of those garbage stores. But if I see some of their shit for $5 at Goodwill, I will pick it up. So
it's ultimately the question of like, can you separate the art from the artist? That's the question. It's the question as old as time. And like, I mean, I hate to bring a serial abuser and rapist like Woody Allen into the conversation, but he's often like the most notable in these kinds of narratives in our public moment of reckoning. I think that it's also a relevant comparison because of the ways that J.K. Rowling's personal life story was weaved into the selling point of Harry Potter. J.K. Rowling has experienced homelessness, and because she has experienced homelessness, she has this somehow direct link into understanding teenage boys' anguish around not being the chosen one or being the chosen one, whatever, you know, but that like her story, we were sold her story as much as we were sold Harry's story. And that means that like it is inextricable, right? Did I watch Annie Hall as a teenager and find it very moving? And like now I know it's because I'm a lesbian who's in love with Diane Keaton. Yes, right? But like, will I ever watch that movie again, or will you ever hear me suggest it to anyone? No, because Woody Allen is like a rapist who married his daughter, right? Like, so like we're not, when we're talking about separating the art from the artist, it's not possible. I think my personal opinion is all of the time, but like in these specific situations, in the specific case of J.K. Rowling, it is also because her story was inextricably tied to how we were sold the books. There is no death of the author moment for Harry Potter. She not only, like her life story was sold to them with us, she continues to reinsert herself. She continues to insert her dominance and her thoughts and her opinions. There can't be death of the author when the author goes on Twitter to say, this character is gay. There can't be death of the author when the author continues to be a part of the movie scripts, you know, writing the scripts for the movies, shaping new stories that are coming out on different publishing platforms, continuing, right? Like not learning at all from any of the critiques that were given to the first set of media that she did. And instead, like just ramming a horrifying anti-Indigenous narrative down our throats with the American Wizarding School stories. I mean, I read those when those first came out, and that was also a moment where I was like, I think that this is like not good.
They've like added this like trans thing, right? Where there's like, oh, the characters can be female with deep voices. Like it's like this like silly ass add-on afterward that is such a ploy for them to continue stealing from their trans community, while this bitch still has control over everything. But also, we can't just rip this out of her hands. I mean, she made it, so it kind of, we can't. She owns it. It's her. It's her art. So that seems to be like the dialogue, right? Like we want the community wants her less involved in the game. It's her story. So yeah, it sucks. I would just drop her like a rock in a pond. Like, bye, girl.
I mean, one, I think that I have to start out with the irony of saying that you'll allow transgender characters on your platform and then still only having binary options for gender. So like you're going to allow trans characters, but they can only be witches or wizards. And somehow your understanding, like to me, and I don't know what that developer room looks like, but to me, that's a very cis understanding of what being transgender means. Like that we just can pick and choose which binary word to ascribe to ourselves, regardless of like our body shape or our personal styling and presentation, right? When it's actually like much more complex than that. And right, like even just providing a third gender option, right? So like witch, wizard, sorcerer, or something like that, right? Wouldn't actually either be truly like having trans characters. Like that would be, you have a third gender option, and right, like non-binary is not a third gender. It is a like a rejection of the idea of like gender binary and category. For many people, not for everyone. Some people, use non-binary in different ways, and that is good and valid too. But it just is ironic to me that we have trans characters, but only binary trans characters. And this is, again, there can't be death of the author if every subsequent piece of media that comes out tries to distance themselves from the mistakes of the author.
I'm going to be honest first, like I myself, I'm a very binary trans woman. So I want to identify as female. My pronouns are she, her. So in games like that, even when I was like a kid, I always picked the most hyper feminine character because that's who I am. I would just make I would probably just make a very binary cis woman in a game like that, because that's just how I would do my thing. But it's you get so used to being like, you're right, that was very nice of you. You just have to like swallow it and go, okay, well, at least they're doing that for us. Like that should just exist. All video games should have you should just have a body and you put whatever you want on it, and that's the person, like that's just how this should be. So it's so fucking, as a trans person, it's just another like rolling your eyes at these fucking cis people who just don't comprehend that they are not the only people on the planet, but that they do have so much control, and that they can just write us in and out of video games and books and movies as they wish, because we really can't defend ourselves, and we rely on our cis allies to say something when we do get written into or out of storylines. I mean, yeah, it's like, it is a very sweet gesture, but also like, it took you all this long to realize that your trans community members want to be a part of your game. It's 2021. Harry Potter came out in like 93.
For me, it always begs the question, why do the characters have to have a gender at all? Like what does what purpose does having your characters have a gender serve? And I think about, right? I mean, I think about Animal Crossing in this example, right? Animal Crossing technically has binary gender options, but if you think about it, they don't. Your pronouns don't change in the game. The way characters interact with you doesn't change in the game based on what length of hairstyle you choose. And that's really, it says boy and it says girl, but the gameplay isn't different. The body shape isn't different. You can still choose all of the femme, eyeliner, hair color, whatever. You can wear a dress. You can wear whatever you want, right? It doesn't actually.
I have my Ariana Grande look.
Yeah, hell yeah, right? And so like, if you want to talk about gender fuckery in video games, like Animal Crossing is a great example of how to do that right. Like at no point is it important to the storyline. And so, I mean, as a trans person, I have a lot of thoughts about how cisgender people write gender experiences into stories in like very cisgender heteronormative ways, especially in a Harry Potter game. Like, and I think that this is a point that is often made that I carry. In a magical universe, in a reality where you can take a potion or do a spell to alter your physical appearance, you can be a person who has the magical ability to alter your physical appearance. Just like, what is the point? What is the purpose of having any gender? And I think it only is born of the cisgender heteronormative idea that gender is a thing that always exists and that like persists beyond our beings in a way that requires it to be present for us to understand a story, which just is not true. there are a number of really great novels out there where you only know the narrator's gender from the context clues that you pick up, and people ascribe different genders to those narrators based on what they think is happening.
I don't play video games. A lot of trans people do. A lot of trans girls play video games because it gives them an outlet to build themselves in a way that they can be free. And we do, like we said, 9 out of 10 of them just dress up as cis girls, right? We just want to look like girls because trans people don't want to be trans people. They want to be people. It's not complicated.
I mean, I think there are 2 other things that I think about here. And I know that we're getting close on time, but like the 2 other things that I think about is like, okay, if there are trans characters, you're specifically saying that you can be trans in the game. Does that mean that there are trans storylines? Like when you play as a trans character, does the game know that you're playing as a trans character? And does your gaming experience, especially for a game set in the 1800s, does your game experience change? Are you harassed on the street? Are you, shunned by your family when they find out that you're trans? If there are trans stories and trans characters, are there only trans stories of pain? Are there also moments of trans joy? Like, a character isn't transgender just because you say that you can ascribe any word to a body type. I think that is the thing, honestly, more than any of the rest of it, that stops me from being like, yeah, you can play this game because they have trans characters. Because like, ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't think any of that is on the table. It's like, it's not any different than any other game where I can choose to play as a guy or I can choose to play as a girl. If it doesn't affect the game experience, it's not a trans story.
Yeah.
They could have made literally any other game. And it could have been immersive and beautiful and about magic, and it didn't have to be Harry Potter.
That guy sounds terrible, whoever Troy Leavitt, whoever the fuck that is, whatever his name is. It does suck. It does suck because these people shouldn't have so much control for how many fucking years they have before they have to actually get called out publicly and have their job taken from them. And then he has the ability to go on his fucking YouTube and be like, I was in charge of the decision the whole time. Like, you weren't. Men are so gross sometimes.
The culture that would allow a transphobe to be in power in that way in the design and development of this game comes from the text, and then like is empowered by J.K. Rowling herself, suffering literally 0 consequences for her attitudes and behaviors. Like the consequence that this person is experiencing, again, his personal choice to separate from the organization because he's been found out is at least like the way that the narrative is being presented. He was not fired, right? I read the tweets. He says, I felt secure in my position. I was not going to be fired. I chose to leave. Whether that's true or not, right? He now gets to control that narrative and to say, you're right, I left because I am a transphobe and I'm proud to be a transphobe. And that is going to be the legacy of the game. No matter, ironically, by issuing this statement and this idea as a way to try to distance themselves from this person, from J.K. Rowling, from whoever it is, all they've done is secure for themselves, like that there will never be a conversation about this game without having to talk about the ways that either J.K. Rowling or this game designer target and dislike trans people.
Would you be playing the game, or would you recommend other people be playing the game now?
I don't know. I want to say no, but I try not to say like never. Like things change and who knows where I'll be. And I might, in 10 years be like, fuck this Harry Potter game. Give me that controller. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know. Like, if I had a PS4 and it didn't give me anxiety to sit and play one, I mean, if it was sitting in front of me, yeah, I might play it and be like, God, I hate J.K. Rowling. She's such a dumb cunt. Oh yeah, come on, Hermione. Like that's just,
yeah.
But I don't have it. I'm not about to invest money in it, and I'm not going to go out of my way to look for it. So,
yeah.
Or if the movies come on, if they're on TV, I might, watch and quote every single goddamn line because I know all of that.
Will or would you play this game? And do you think others should?
So in 2021, it breaks my heart. I will not play this game. I think you're right. It breaks my heart because it breaks the heart of like my inner child who loved that thing very much and who would have loved this kind of game. In 10 years ago, it would have been the kind of game that I bought a different system to play. And now I just have no interest. I don't have interest in giving J.K. Rowling money. I don't have interest in purchasing a specific console to play this game. And I say that as a person who got a console to play a specific game. And I think that I don't recommend that people do play it. I don't know that I won't say that if you play it, you're a transphobe, because while trans people ourselves are certainly not free from transphobic attitudes, I can point to a number of examples if you wanted them. There will certainly be trans people who play this game as a matter of reclamation, but like, it's not for me and I can't recommend it.
Is the J.K. Rowling stuff or the Troy Leavitt stuff or whatever it might be, is that like just enough for you to be like, you know what? No.
J.K. Rowling, period. Yeah, that's enough. And I think it makes me more firmly in the I would not recommend it column, because they are trying to bend over backwards to show that they have trans characters. The trying to do the mea culpa thing makes me less interested than I already was, which was not interested.
Thank you to AC and Hope for talking to me about Hogwarts Legacy and about Harry Potter overall. I really appreciate it. So where do I, Matt, come out on Hogwarts Legacy after all of that? Well, I won't be buying it, and I don't think that you should either. I'm not gonna judge you if you do. Lord knows I have enough Potter merch in this house. She's already got my money, but I'm not gonna be giving her any more. Maybe if I find it used in a few years and I still have that interest. I mean, I'm not really into the open world action RPG thing anymore anyway. I feel it's a little overplayed, but mostly it's the transphobia. But the thing is, I don't think it's going to matter that much. This game is going to be a massive financial success. Most folks are not going to engage with this level of conversation and criticism. And if you are, then I would suggest that you spend your money elsewhere. You might try Eichenfell or Fire Emblem Three Houses. Both have this kind of Hogwarts magic school vibe going on. Absolutely different properties, but they've kind of got that similarity there. And also, as far as like television shows go, I really enjoyed the Magicians TV show, but what I'll tell you is you might nope out after season 3. I totally get mourning the loss of this thing that we all loved. I went through that a few years ago, but the thing that helped me was that there are entire worlds of fandom that have figured out how to make fandom their own without J.K. Rowling's involvement. For me, that looks like keeping up with what's going on in the Wizard Rock scene. Over the years, they've really shifted and changed and grown beyond the text of Harry Potter and made something that is really out of Rowling's hands. It's a community, absolutely, but there's a narrative that belongs only to us. Hogwarts Legacy is all but written. This game is poised to be a huge success, and Rowling's transphobia isn't going anywhere. But this queer as fuck fanbase doesn't have to be a part of it. We can listen to trans folks like AC and Hope about what they say they'll be doing. Or not. We have that decision to make, and I've made mine. Leave a comment telling me what non-Harry Potter Magic School game you're gonna be playing, and like the video so that more people see it. Subscribe if you want to see more of my face, and share the video if you know someone that is having a hard time making the decision if they're going to buy Hogwarts Legacy or not. I will see y'all next time.